Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. Today we're doing something really exciting. So I have had dairy goats for 3 years and I've been making cheese the whole time. But not until recently did I discover that you can make more than just the soft cheeses from home. And you don't have to have a dairy animal in order to make this cheese. You can use pasteurized milk from the store. And so really this recipe is for anyone who wants to make some cheese at home. So this cheese is a really great slicing cheese, and it also can be grated. It holds up really well to bending and it also melts. And that's because it's actually mozzarella. So I've tried to make mozzarella quite a few times with our goat's milk over the years, and it's been really underwhelming. It's been a lot of work for a really blasé product. When I found this recipe from Jess over at Roots and Refuge Farm, I was a little bit apprehensive at first because I didn't want to waste more milk trying to do mozzarella all over again. But guys, this recipe is amazing. I'm gonna link it as well as Jess's original video in the description box below. She also put it in a blog post. And with that, let's get to cooking. So what we are going to use in order to make the cheese today is 1 gallon of milk. We're going to use a little bit of rennet. We're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of this. And we're going to be using 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. I bought this really giant bag of citric acid on Amazon in the middle of the pandemic. You can also get a reasonably sized citric acid from Ball at the grocery store where canning stuff is. And I also have a little cheese thermometer here. This is going to help us tell when the milk is of the correct temperature to add our other ingredients. So first we're going to put the milk in the pan. So as with all other cheeses, you really want to work with a heavy bottomed pot when you're heating up milk at all. Milk has a tendency to scald, and a thicker bottomed pot, like a nice stainless steel pot with a really thick bottom, those are going to be ideal because they're going to distribute the heat a lot more evenly and the milk itself isn't so close to the heat source. If you don't have a heavy bottomed pot, it's really not a game changer. This particular recipe doesn't have the milk heating up very much at all, and so I think it'll be fine as long as you make sure you're stirring it pretty frequently. So 1 gallon of milk in. And this is whole milk. If you're going to be making the mozzarella from home using store-bought milk, I would try to buy whole milk. While the milk is still cold, we're going to sprinkle over 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid. This stuff is strange. It smells like fake maple syrup. I don't know why. And then I'm just going to give things a quick stir to get everything mixed in. And then I'm going to turn the burner on medium and heat things up to 90 degrees. So while we're waiting on the milk to heat up, we're going to be mixing the rennet with about 1 cup of room temperature water. So this rennet I bought from the New England Cheese Company. I'm going to link this shop in the description box below, but you can find rennet tablets and other forms of rennet at some grocery stores. The grocery stores around us have rennet tablets and liquid rennet. You can find animal-based rennet, but what I happen to have here is vegetable rennet, and every form of rennet works pretty much the same as far as I can tell, and we're going to be using 1/4 teaspoon in the water. If you have the tablet form, you'd want to use a 1/4 tablet. Even if you don't plan to make cheese very often, or you don't make cheese very often, this stuff keeps in the refrigerator for a really long time. I think I've had it for 2 years and I haven't used it that much. But now that I have my hands on a recipe that works well, that uses rennet, I'm probably going to go through it pretty quickly. You're going to want to stir it gradually as it heats up, just to make sure everything is heating up nice and evenly. Okay, it's ready. We're reading right at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm going to turn off the heat and actually take the whole pot off of the heat. So this is the fun part. This is our rennet and water mixture, and we're going to incorporate it into our milk nice and evenly. Using the back of the spoon helps distribute everything really well. And this is where the magic happens. So the rennet is going to start breaking the curds in the way. It's going to start separating everything up pretty quickly. I'm just going to stir very gently for around 30 seconds. I just want the rennet to be incorporated. I don't really want to be disturbing the milk too much because I don't want the curds to be broken up. I would like one big curd ultimately. See how things are starting to change? See here? You're already seeing the milk separate. See that? That's what we want. So everything is mixed up together. I'm gonna put the lid on with the pot off of the burner, and it's just gonna sit here for 5 minutes while the rennet does its magic. So what we're going to be looking for when all is said and done is a clean break of curds and whey. And I'll show you what that looks like in 5 minutes, or 2 seconds for you. So you can see a pretty clear line between the curds and the whey. Up top here, this whey is the nice clear yellow stuff, and the curd is this more solid white. And if we put a break in the curd, we should see the clean, clear whey coming out. So this is what we call a clean break. And what we're going to do at this point, we want to get the curds and the whey to separate. And the easiest way to do that is to cut the curd into smaller bits. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to cut a grid in the curd, and that will help us remove the curd from the pan and help more of the whey separate. Oop. Sometimes it slides around, does not have to be perfect. And to assist the curds and the whey in their separation, we're actually going to put the pot back on the stove and heat it back up to about 105. It's fine to gently stir the curd at this point, and if you happen to come across some curds that are sticking together or a lot bigger than each other, you can just use your utensil to just kind of break them up. Again, they don't have to be perfect, but the goal is to help more of the whey come out of those curds, and cutting the curd is how we accomplish that. Okay, everything has heated up to 105, and now we need to separate the curds and whey. The recipe that Jess has says to use a mesh strainer. I don't have a mesh strainer that is big enough to strain all of these curds through. So I just have a regular colander here with a dampened piece of muslin draped over, and I also have a bowl. So the order of it goes microwave safe bowl, colander, and muslin, dampened muslin. I happen to have this pretty nifty cheese ladle here, but any slotted spoon would work, and we're just gonna transfer the curds out of the whey into our strainer setup over here. Usually with a gallon of milk, I'll get about a pound of cheese, which is really awesome. So it actually, I wouldn't be surprised if I get a little bit more than a pound today. We will weigh it at the end. Now this might depend, like the volume of cheese that you get out of your milk, it could depend on the animal that is being milked. So the results might be a little bit variable. Right now I am milking 4 Nigerian dwarf does once a day, and I'm getting about a half gallon a day, which is plenty for us to drink fresh milk and make awesome things like this cheese. Okay, so we have our whey and our curds, and we're not going to throw this whey away. There's a lot of really great practical uses for whey, and I'm going to list them on the screen here. So go ahead and pause real quick and take a screenshot so you don't lose track of all the amazing things that you can do with this. My favorite thing to do with whey is to actually feed it to my pigs. So right now we're feeding our pigs a mash, and it's basically kind of like sawdust in texture, and I like to wet it down for them because I feel like it makes it more palatable, and it makes sure that they can really access all of their feed. So I will use this whey to moisten their feed instead of water tomorrow morning. Before we got pigs though, I have used whey and just fed it straight to the chickens. I've taken the pot straight outside and poured it in a bucket, and the chickens love it, and it's really good for them. I'm just going to do a little bit of light squeezing. The goal is to get most, if not all, of the whey out of this cheese. This is only going to be the first step of that process, so I don't have to be super thorough with squeezing at this point. So once the whey just kind of slows down and gets to be a drip instead of a steady stream, that's when I'm going to pour this whey out of my collection bowl under here. And I'm just going to plop this big ball of curds straight down in. So So our lovely little cheese ball here, it looks great, but it's not done yet. So our next step actually is to microwave the cheese for 1 minute. Now, this is the point in the recipe when I saw Jess do this that she almost lost me. I almost clicked off. Don't click off. Trust the process. This is homemade mozzarella cheese, and even though a microwave isn't ideal, personally, this way of making mozzarella is really the only way that I've been able to be successful with mozzarella. So if using the microwave in order to be less dependent on the grocery store is what it takes, then I'm fine with that. So microwave it is, 1 minute. So here comes the fun part. Our cheese is starting to melt a little bit, and some of the whey has actually started to come out of the cheese already. So I am going to strain off or drain off this whey into my whey bowl over here. And then in order to get more of the whey out of the cheese, we're just going to stretch the cheese and fold it over on itself. You see all this whey coming out? Now I'm wearing gloves right now. You could do this just with impeccably clean hands. This cheese is really hot, and I find that using gloves helps me work the cheese a little bit more thoroughly. Otherwise, it's almost too hot to touch. But we're just going to be stretching the cheese like so and folding it over on itself. And right now the cheese is pretty stretchy. I'm liking the amount of stretch that I'm getting. The goal is to be able to stretch it right around 12 inches without it breaking. And it's breaking a little bit, so we're not there. As I stretch and as more whey keeps coming out of the cheese, I am going to keep draining that off. And I'm going to be microwaving periodically for 30-second intervals at this point until we get that nice, beautiful stretch. And of course, you have to make a little bit of a mess or it doesn't count. So it's hard to describe the texture that I'm going for, but as you heat the cheese and stretch it out, you can start to feel that the curd gets much smoother. It's a very silky type cheese and very hot even through the glove. Holy moly. See? It's looking really good. Woo! It's hot, 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 hot. So I'm really liking the stretch that I'm getting, and I'm really liking the smoothness. So at this point, this is when I need to add some salt. So of course this is optional, but I think that salt really helps bring out the flavor of the cheese. And for this amount of cheese, for the amount of milk that we used, I'm gonna put in 1 teaspoon, knead it in, and then give it a taste and adjust to my liking. Obviously you can't take out salt. You can only add more. So if you're a little bit leery on how much salt you want to add, start small, start slow. It looks like a lot of salt, but trust me, the cheese needs it. 1 teaspoon. So after we added the salt, I gave the cheese one more 30-second zap for good measure. We're gonna need it one last time, and then it's time to form the cheese. So traditionally, mozzarella cheese is stored within some of the whey. If you want to have the slicing type cheese, or if you want to be able to grate the mozzarella to put cheese on your pizza or something like that, it's my advice to you not to store the cheese in the whey. For me, it creates a really weird texture, and my sister-in-law put it perfectly the other day. She said it's like tapioca boba pearls, if you know what those are, that have been sitting in liquid for too long. It just gets this weird, non-pleasant, fluffy exterior, and I don't love it. So I actually store it just in an airtight container without whey. So everything, all the salt is well incorporated here, and I'm just going to be kneading it into a ball. Still very hot, holy cow. This cheese is pretty cool too. It usually doesn't take much coaxing to get it to be a nice, smooth, nearly perfect little orb here. See, isn't this great? So, all right. Got my little refrigerator container here that does have a lid. If you didn't have a lid, you could put saran wrap over it. And I'm just gonna set it down in here. So if you'd like to eat the cheese fresh, just like this, nice and soft and warm, you can absolutely do that. What I'm gonna do, because my plan is to either grate this cheese or to slice it to use for burgers or sandwiches, I'm gonna place it in the refrigerator, again, with a lid or some saran wrap over top. Just know that whatever container you put your cheese in, it is gonna kind of relax and basically take the shape of that container. Originally, I had placed this type of cheese inside this shallow butter container like this, and I placed the lid on, and as the cheese settled in the refrigerator, it kind of almost oozed onto the side. So maybe not something like this, like not a flat platter. You're gonna wanna have something with higher sides to contain it as it cools down. After it's cooled down, you could absolutely store it in something like this for sure. So it's been several hours and our mozzarella is good and firm now. Yeah, we're having pizza for dinner. We like to do junk food on Fridays, Junk Food Friday, and Levi has added a couple extras to his pizza. And we all know that when you add extras to your pizza, you need to top it off with a little bit of cheese so your pepperonis don't fall off when you go to eat them. So it's a perfect opportunity to show you how well this cheese is going to shred. There it goes. Oh, we've got some lovely mozzarella shreds here. Just add them straight to the pizza. Awesome, huh? This is so awesome to be able to do with our goat's milk from home. It's a super yummy, wonderfully mild flavor. And if you're from Wisconsin and you know what that cheese curd squeak is, this cheese has a little bit of that squeak when you eat it. I love it. I actually forgot to weigh this before I ate a whole bunch of it and shredded it up for our pizzas. But even then, this is nearly 1 pound of cheese after I have already eaten a bit. So we did get well over a pound from our 1 gallon of goat's milk. So a few of you may have heard, but this month, or this coming month of February 2023, our channel is going to be participating in $50 February. And what that is essentially we are challenged to eat more of what we have grown and preserved in the month of February and only spend $50 for the whole month on our groceries. One of these blocks of cheese, let's just hypothetically talk about 1 pound of mozzarella. I honestly don't know what that's going for in the regular grocery store, but I'll put an example of that down here. And I know though that being able to make this cheese from home is going to save us a lot of money, especially during this February challenge. So we're going to be doing a whole lot more than just making our own cheese in February. So we hope you subscribe and stick around because it's going to be pretty exciting. Also, I'm not sure how long this is supposed to last in the refrigerator. I'm going to store it in an airtight container, but it never lasts long enough for it to go bad here. So I'm going to say hypothetically it should last about a week to 10 days, but again, it's never lasted that long simply because we eat it all.